from that common Jewish connection and we getting along with each other. I got a girlfriend and things were going sweet. And then I went off already scheduled to Greece. And it wasn't nearly as fun. It wasn't nearly as pleasurable. All right, it was like 5% of the joy that I had when I did things as part of a community. And that rings true for almost all my life. The most intense, pleasurable, meaningful, exciting, resonating experiences of my life are in person with people. Not over my show, not over the phone, not over Zoom.
Other than my poor husband. He's like, do you want to talk again? Do you need more talking now?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in two minds about this myself. I'm a bit like old people dead, and as you know, allowing women not the optimal.
Okay, I just fast forwarded through 2.5 minutes of Misha's commentary.
United States, this Republican woman, and she said, well, police are going to use heuristics, and I know that my mixed-race son that I adopted is going to be more likely to be arrested than my white sons are because of this police heuristic. And people were like, oh, she should have her son taken away. But yet people...
Well, she's right.
These same people have their kids being watched by strangers all day, every day, who have God knows what kind of political views. I mean, not necessarily the right political views. And so, yeah, I do think that it is almost a genetic determinism in practice that people would never admit if they were having a conversation about what actually shapes their children.
I'm totally genetic deterministic about my kids. Like, obviously, I want to give them every opportunity, but I'm not like the tiger mum or like the Soviet Jewish thing, like at all. Like, as in, I want them to do fine, but I'm such a genetic.
So Misha Saul has a really good Twitter account, definitely worth following, and he has some good podcasts too. And great bloke.
I'm pretty sure whatever I do, they'll kind of be who they'll be. But let's move on.
So he's an Eastern European Jew, is in Australia, married with 3 kids. And Diana Fleischman does not have children. She's about 40 years of age. She's married to fellow evolutionary psychologist Jeffrey Miller.
I want to talk about the next thing that I've been kind of mulling over, which I think fascinating in your view, are the big lies. So
yeah.
I kind of...
Let me fast forward.
So, I mean, there's so many big lies, and especially right now, I haven't been on Twitter now, and I think it's like been a couple weeks. I saw that you tweeted about me, and I just, there's just nothing makes sense right now because it's election season, and so it's so demoralizing to even engage with stuff. But I will try. So I think you're talking about sex difference realism and sex differences.
So why does it have to be so demoralizing to engage? Right? Maybe don't engage on Twitter, maybe don't engage on social media, but one's world does not have to go crazy just because there's an election season. Right? There's got to be a way of disengaging from the crazy.
There was a paper that came out a couple weeks ago that was a Nature Communications paper about perceptions of trustworthiness in faces, and I thought about writing a piece about it, but my husband's ex-wife actually...
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm a fairly good judge of whether someone's trustworthy, and I feel like I can, way better than average, or way better than chance, detect someone's trustworthiness from their face. For example, people who lead decadent lives, you can usually see it on their face. They have a lot more fat. People who are cruel, you can also see that usually in their face. People who are smart, right? You can see that in their face, and smart people tend to be more empathic because they certainly have more capability of empathy. And then it's their choice whether or not to use it, but generally speaking they do, which is why when you're in a neighborhood with an above average IQ, you have a below average crime rate. When you're in a neighborhood with a below average IQ, you have an above average crime rate.
She wrote a piece about it before me, which, reminds and all that.
I hate her already.
And so people were calling that phrenology all over the place because they were saying you can't know anything about somebody based on their appearance. Where do I start with this? So that's, there's been this consistent idea. I'll kind of bring it. So in Tasmania last summer, I did a talk which is called the Control Sermon, which I have to record and put on the blog actually. And in that talk, I implied that a lot of the reason that we have balked at categorization, or even at the connection between personality and biology, is because we don't want to be predicted. We are afraid of governments and people in power. Governments have consistently gotten more powerful, and so we don't want people to be able to figure out what we're like based on our faces or our sex or our race or anything like that. And so these biological categories, which are generally very useful as heuristic mechanisms, I can tell a lot about you, knowing that you're a Eastern European descended Australian Jew with 3 kids. Like I would know a man. I would know a lot about you on that basis. But people have really rejected that idea, and so even though everybody says you have a gut feeling about people, and everybody knows that even if I just see a picture of somebody, I'm going to much better than chance be able to assess their personality and tell you something about what kind of person they're like. Maybe it won't be perfect, but it's going to be much better than anything I would randomly pick out of the air. Even though humans can do that, people are really upset about any kind of control. And I think this is something that's really holding back psychology. Is if you look at something like Gina Ribbon's book, which I can't remember the name of, which is Anti-Sex Differences, or if you look at somebody like Cordelia Fine, or who was it who wrote Inferior? Angela Saini, people like that, who make it sound like any categorization of humans into groups, whether that's ethnicities or sexes or IQ, any way of quantifying human beings has become insanely politicized and controversial. And I think what it's really about is very much like people's reaction to kind of How to Train Your Boyfriend. People don't want to be controlled, and therefore they say that there's no legitimacy to quantifying humans in any of these ways. People who believe in astrological signs think that race is a myth, right? There's a lot of people like that. And so it's astrological signs are not at all offensive to people because they're non-predictive. People are happy to take on certain quantifications of human characteristics if they actually are incapable of predicting their behavior. And so we're in this...
I never thought of this angle. So I'm glad I listened to this podcast with evolutionary psychologist Diana Fleischman here. Sounds like at the time of this podcast she'd pretty much soured on a career in academia and just concentrating on her blog and her books.
Weird scenario right now with psychology and with the public assessment of psychology, where the metrics that are least predictive of human behavior are also the least controversial.
Wow, I love that. That's super interesting. So, and that's why you get downgrading in the US of things like SAT scores. You kind of actually, people have this furor around actually predictive metrics and kind of agnosticism around, fluff, basically.
Well, some people, right, those who are defending the conventional wisdom, those who are defending current arrangements are furious, right? I'm not sure regular people are furious about SAT scores and that not all groups perform equally well on them. And I think regular people are particularly up in arms about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at...
And given that regular people aren't that up in arms, why is there a furor over SAT scores? It's a furor among elites. And so much of society is dominated by elites, and regular opinion doesn't matter. So, for example, whether or not we support Taiwan if China tries to invade, well, regular people don't get a say there. That's already a decision that's been made by American elites. We will go to war to defend Taiwan. And so all sorts of spheres of life are simply divvied up between elites, and regular people don't really get a vote. They don't really count. So just like you have to be about 300 pounds or so to play tackle or on the offensive or defensive lines in the NFL, so too you have to have an IQ of north of 120 to meaningfully play a role in political, cultural, academic life.
This kind of trustworthiness paper where people were saying that there are facial characteristics that indicate greater trustworthiness. If you look at average faces, the data points, if you look at the linear regression that they did, there's a huge spread of data points. The cloud of data points is just enormous. But this is what a science looks like in its crib. It's not very predictive to begin with. And what people are basically trying to do is kill the science in its crib. They're trying to make it so that it doesn't get more predictive. Because the mere idea that, even...
Oh man, bugs are falling all over me. Eat me alive. So yeah, you'd think we'd want to know like genetic predispositions towards criminality, or facial markers of someone who's more likely to be a child abuser or a pedophile or violent. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if nature color-coded people for our benefit, so you could just tell by looking at someone whether they are likely to be smart or dumb, to be violent or the opposite of violence, peaceful, right? I mean, so much of nature is color-coded. Wouldn't it be amazing if that was also true with human beings?
There was a paper done a few years ago about gaydar, that people can actually tell whether or not, this is obvious to anybody who's like existed on Earth for 10 minutes, is that you can tell if somebody's gay at better than chance levels by watching them talk. I can tell if somebody's gay sometimes just like literally watching them walk their dog. Like you can tell if somebody is gay. I mean, lesbians are more difficult depending on the characteristics they have. But yeah, gay men are people are much better than chance at telling if people are gay. And the gaydar concept, again, incredibly controversial.
Is it still? I wonder, because obviously, there's been a massive shift in both kind of legal environment as well as just public.
I think prenatal environment makes people homosexual or not. But yeah, the concept of gaydar, I don't know if you would ask people how offensive it is. It does seem to be consistent with the idea that people are born this way. So I could see how people might not be upset about that. But if you said, and this is another thing, is like, Devendra Singh, who's this guy that I was I was a PhD student and I worked with him when I was in graduate school. He had this study where he had faces of people who were sexual abusers, people who sexually assaulted adult women versus people who had sexual contact with underage children in the variety of things. And people were much better chance at telling if somebody had sex with children versus adult women.
It's a moustache, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a moustache. I mean, I think a lot of people a lot of actual child molesters, as opposed to actual pedophiles, tend to be people who they're just very low IQ and they're a bit confused about who are actual normal.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so I've read that the average IQ among prisoners is something like 89. All right, so the average IQ in Australia, United States, is about 98. So just knowing that someone is dumber, they're more likely to commit a crime, to molest a child, to commit violence.
Targets of their sexual intent. But I don't think that necessarily would be very controversial, the idea that you can tell, whatever, somebody's sexual interests necessarily, because nobody's going to be like, I'm a pedophile and I'm offended.
I don't know. I actually think there'd be way more.
Like, one of the things that's made me so, one of the things that's made me so weary of life is this whole response to cuties. Have you heard about this whole cuties thing? Actually, I mean, I guess I wasn't that surprised, because he sometimes has really good takes. Ben Shapiro, one of the best possible takes about this, was basically saying, some movies intend to make you uncomfortable on purpose to make a point, and this film made you uncomfortable on purpose to make a point. It's not, it's bizarre. But in any case, I think that what people are seeing right now. There's a woman who wrote this book called.
So yeah, good on Netflix for not caving to the backlash over cuties, and good on Netflix for not caving for the backlash on Dave Chappelle, and good on Netflix for not caving on a bunch of controversial material. And so I was listening to Alex Kashuta talking about how Netflix has taken over our brains with Netflix ideas. Well, it's just a pretty broad panoply of programs to choose from on Netflix, and they have demonstrated a pretty strong commitment to freedom of expression, and for that they should be applauded.
Weapons of math destruction. Math.
I don't recall Netflix ever backing down on a matter of free expression.